Okay, question for you. Have you ever opened a bag of chips only to, well, feel like you've mostly lot them back there? Or maybe you've caught your cat staring, like really staring, and wondered what on earth is going through its little head?
Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is where we cut through all the noise, throw out gooey stuff from recent sources just for you. Today, we're digging into the June 23rd, 2025 Consumers 360 news commentary. It pulls together articles from consumers.app, and honestly, we've got a real mix of topics today. Might seem a bit random at first glance.
They really might. But, as we unpack them, you start to see these surprising connections. These headlines actually reveal some crucial trends about our daily lives. We're talking everything from, what's literally in our food to how we're using new tech and, even trying to figure out our pets. Exactly. And our goal here is simple. Give you solid, practical insights straight from consumers' research so you feel properly informed, but, not buried in data. Think of it as your quick guide to understanding the hidden stuff shaping your world as a consumer. Okay, let's get into it. First up, something that, might make you look twice at your lunch container. Headline from CNN via MSN.com. Microplastics shed by food packaging are contaminating our food and drink, study finds. That sounds not great.
No, it really doesn't. And when we talk about microplastics in this context, we mean these tiny plastic bits, like smaller than 5 millimeters. They're breaking off from food containers, wraps, that sort of thing. And the big finding isn't just that they exist, it's how much of it is getting into what we actually eat and drink. It's quite pervasive.
Right. So these microscopic plastic pieces are in our food. What does that actually mean for our health? I mean, should we be concerned?
Consumers' research definitely flags some concerns. Physically, these particles could irritate or inflame our digestive system. That's one thing. But maybe the bigger worry is that microplastics act like little sponges or maybe like taxis for other harmful chemicals.
Toxic taxis, huh?
Yeah, exactly. They can absorb things like persistent organic pollutants, POPs, and heavy metals, nasty stuff that doesn't break down easily, and carry them right into our bodies. Now, research is still ongoing to really understand the long-term effects, the chronic stuff. But the potential is definitely there.
That does sound pretty insidious. Okay, for the science fans listening, how do researchers actually find these tiny things? It sounds incredibly difficult.
It is tricky. Traditionally, they've used things like optical or infrared spectroscopy, basically scanning with light or X-rays. But there's been a really interesting recent development. A study looks at using resonance microwave spectroscopy.
Microwave spectroscopy, like pinging for plastic with microwaves.
Kind of, yeah. It's exciting because it could be a much cheaper, faster way to detect microplastics in real time, right there in the environment, like in soil or water, without needing a big fancy lab.
Okay.
The main hurdle, though, telling the plastic bits apart from all the other tiny natural particles floating around. That's still a challenge.
That makes sense. So if we zoom out a bit beyond our food, what role do these microplastics play in spreading other pollution around, like in the oceans?
That's another key point. They're not just pollution themselves, they're vectors. They absorb these other chemicals, sometimes called plastic-related organic pollutants, or PROPs. Then, as the plastic travels on ocean currents, it carries those pollutants potentially vast distances.
Wow.
So, plastic dumped in one area could deliver harmful chemicals to a completely different, maybe even remote, ecosystem. It's like pollution hitchhiking across the globe. The dynamics are complex, depends on the plastic type, the conditions, but it's a major pathway.
Okay, that really broadens the scope. And what about closer to home on our farms? How does this microplastic contamination affect agricultural soils and, the food we grow?
It's definitely a concern for agriculture, too. Microplastics in soil can mess with nutrient cycles and harm the helpful microbes living there. For instance, one study found they can change how plants access key nutrients like phosphorus and nitrogen, especially when it gets hotter. This, in turn, can affect the soil's microbial diversity and impact how well crops grow, particularly those plants that are already a bit sensitive to heat. So it's a direct line from plastic waste back to our food supply.
So basically, microplastics are turning up everywhere, even Antarctica, which just shows how widespread this is. And while new tech, like that microwave thing, might help us find it faster.
Right, like microwave reflectometry for real-time detection.
The real fix is still cutting down on plastic waste globally, isn't it?
Absolutely. Detection is one thing, prevention is the goal.
Okay, let's shift gears. From what's in our food packaging to maybe what's not in the product itself. You know that feeling, you buy your favorite snack, get it home, and the bag feels lighter. Or the chocolate bar seems, shorter.
Oh, yes. The Is it me or a moment?
Exactly. Our next headline from AOL nails it. 5 grocery items that quietly shrunk but stayed the same price. So, what is this shrinkflation thing and how is it sneakily affecting us?
Shrinkflation is precisely that sneaky feeling. It's when manufacturers reduce the size or the quantity of a product, fewer chips, less cereal, smaller bar, but keep the price exactly the same. It's basically a strategy they use to cope with rising production costs, ingredients, energy, transport, whatever, without having to put the sticker price up, which might scare customers off.
Right, so you're paying the same but getting less bang for your buck, essentially.
You got it. Less value hidden behind a familiar price tag.
It feels a bit dishonest when you finally clock it. Can you give us some examples what kind of things are shrinking?
Oh, it's common. Think cereal boxes that look the same size, but have less actual cereal inside. Potato chip bags, the classic example of more air. Candy bars getting a bit shorter or thinner. Even things like toilet paper rolls sometimes have fewer sheets. The changes are often small enough that you might not notice right away. That's the point, really.
And I've heard another term floating around, skimpflation. How does that compare? Is it the same deal?
Similar motivation, but different tactic. Shrinkflation is less product. Skimpflation is less quality.
Ah, okay.
So with skimpflation, you might get the same size product, but maybe they've swapped out some ingredients for cheaper ones. Or maybe the service associated with something gets reduced.
Like fewer staff at a checkout.
Could be, yeah. Both are ways for companies to manage costs without raising the headline price, but they hit the consumer differently. One's quantity, one's quality.
Seems like companies are walking a fine line. What are the wider economic effects of shrinkflation, and how do we as shoppers tend to react when we figure it out?
Economically, it helps companies protect their profit margins during inflation without the immediate backlash of a price hike. Consumers' research suggests many people don't notice immediately, but when they do notice, they often feel tricked or cheated. It can definitely erode brand trust and loyalty over time.
I bet.
It's interesting, though. It suggests companies think consumers would rather get slightly less product than pay visibly more money. A bit cynical, maybe, but that seems to be the calculation.
So what can we do? How can listeners fight back against shrinkflation when they're doing their shopping?
Good question. You're not powerless. First, become a label detective. Really pay attention to the net weight or the quantity listed on the package, not just the box size. And crucially, look at the unit price, the price per ounce, per gram, per sheet, whatever it is. That tells you the real value.
Right, the small print on the shelf label.
Exactly. Second, if you notice a change, maybe tell the company. Tweet at them, email them. Consumer feedback does matter. And third, consider store brands or generics. They often follow shrinkflation trends more slowly or not at all, and can offer better value, especially now when everyone's watching their budget.
Good tips. Be vigilant, check the unit price, and consider alternatives.
Okay, so we've talked about plastic problems and shrinking products. Let's pivot towards solutions. Linking back to microplastics, there's this big idea, the circular economy. Our next headline is from Forbes, Driving the $1 Trillion Shift to Plastic Circularity. Sounds ambitious. What exactly is the circular economy? How does it tackle big issues like plastic waste and climate change?
It is ambitious, but it's a really important concept. Basically, the circular economy has 3 main principles. 1, design out waste and pollution right from the start. 2, keep products and materials in use for as long as possible. Think reuse, repair, remanufacturing, recycling. And 3, help natural systems regenerate.
So moving away from just take, make, throw away. Precisely. It's a shift from that linear model to a sustainable loop. By keeping materials circulating, we use fewer raw resources, generate much less waste, and significantly cut down on carbon emissions associated with extraction and production. It tackles waste and climate.
That sounds like the dream scenario. But you mentioned a study earlier about microplastics in wastewater in New Delhi. How does that real-world example highlight the challenges in actually achieving this circular vision, especially with plastics?
Yeah, that New Delhi study is a real wake-up call. It perfectly shows the gap between the ideal of circularity and the current reality of our infrastructure. Remember, microplastics are tiny, less than 5 millimeters, very hard to filter out. The study found loads of them in the city's wastewater and the leftover sludge.
Which risks getting back into the environment or food chain?
Exactly. And critically, the treatment plants there were only removing about 43% of them. That's not great. It just underscores how difficult it is to manage this tiny plastic debris once it's out there. Building a truly circular system means having the technology and infrastructure that can actually capture even the smallest fragments. We're not quite there yet.
Okay, so technology needs to catch up. You mentioned an app earlier, M-Waste. How can things like that help make waste processing more efficient and maybe even cut down greenhouse gases?
M-Waste is a really neat example of technology stepping in. It's a mobile app using computer vision, basically, teaching computers to see in deep learning. You point your phone camera at some waste, and the app identifies what it is.
Yeah.
Plastic, paper, glass, metal, cardboard, general trash.
Wow, instantly.
Pretty much, yeah. And it's got a high accuracy rate, around 92% precision. This means waste can be sorted much more effectively. Better sorting leads to better recycling and less contamination, which in turn reduces the greenhouse gases produced when waste is disposed of incorrectly, like in landfills. So it's tech directly helping climate goals.
That's clever. Connecting this back to the bigger picture, the trillion-dollar shift idea, what kind of investments are needed to really push this circularity and tackle climate change, especially with plastics?
We're talking massive investment, according to the research highlighted in Consumers Research. Huge amounts of capital need to flow into investment strategies, and even the idea of creating a specific, voluntarily funded, low-carbon fund to help countries adapt to climate change.
So mobilizing finance on a global scale.
Absolutely. It needs coordinated action from governments, businesses, and consumers to really steer investment toward these sustainable solutions.
And what role do banks and financial institutions play in all this? Are they changing how they invest because of climate change and plastic waste?
They're becoming increasingly central, actually. Many financial institutions are now actively integrating sustainability and ethical considerations into how they operate and invest. This means consciously redirecting capital away from high-carbon industries and towards low-carbon tech, renewable energy, and sustainable projects, including those tackling plastic waste.
So using money to drive change.
Essentially, yes. Aligning financial strategies with environmental goals is seen as crucial for driving the systemic change needed for a sustainable, circular economy. Finance holds a lot of power here.
Okay, shifting from the physical world of waste to the digital realm, let's talk AI. Our next headline comes from Time. The dangers of AI personalization. Sounds a bit ominous. What are the risks here, especially with things like synthetic media and generative AI becoming so common?
It is a bit ominous, and there are real concerns. AI personalization, while it can be useful, also carries significant dangers. One major risk is the spread of misinformation and disinformation at scale. This can seriously erode trust in media, in institutions, maybe even in each other. Then there's the economic side, the potential automation of creative jobs.
And what about synthetic media like deepfakes?
Right, that's a big part of it. Generative AI can create synthetic media, incredibly realistic fake images, videos, audio that can be used to manipulate, deceive, or harass. It makes it harder to know what's real online.
That is definitely worrying. But AI isn't all bad, right? I saw something about AI in video games. How is personalization changing game characters? That sounds kind of fun, actually.
It can be. This is a more positive application. There are advancements like AI personality engines. Extreme AI is one example. These engines create non-player characters, NPCs, in games that don't just follow scripts. They have adaptive, evolving personalities.
So they learn and change based on how you play?
Exactly. They can react to the player in much more dynamic, almost human-like ways. It makes the game world feel more alive, more immersive, compared to the old static NPCs. Your interactions feel more meaningful.
That's cool. And I also read something about AI-generated images helping us engage with our own personal data. How does that work?
Yeah, this is another interesting area. Research is exploring how AI can take personal data, maybe fitness tracking data, financial data, whatever, and transform it into unique visual representations. Instead of just spreadsheets or graphs, you get these novel images that might help you understand or connect with your data in a new way. It's about visual storytelling with your own information.
Turning data into art, almost.
Kind of, yeah. Offering a different, maybe more intuitive way to engage with it.
Okay, but back to the challenges. How does all the synthetic media, the AI-generated images, videos, text, impact traditional content creation and the economy around it?
It's definitely a disruption. On one hand, synthetic media can automate tasks previously done by humans, graphic design, writing, even video production to some extent. This raises real concerns about job displacement in creative industries. But on the other hand, it also creates new opportunities. It can make content creation faster, cheaper, and potentially open up sophisticated tools to more people. It might lead to new forms of creativity and efficiency. It's, as you said, a double-edged sword, reshaping that whole landscape.
Lots to think about there. Okay, for our final segment, let's bring it right back home to our furry, feathery, or scaly companions. Our last headline is from AOL. The weird psychology behind your pet's everyday behavior. Love this one. So let's start with the basics. Why do pets do those things? Like the staring, the constant sniffing, following you absolutely everywhere.
Ugh. The classic pet mysteries. Well, a lot of it comes down to their natural instincts and how they communicate. That intense stare. It could be for attention, affection. Maybe they're trying to figure out what you're going to do next, or perhaps they just want that treat. Sniffing everything is basically how dogs, especially, gather information. Their sense of smell is incredible. It's like reading the daily news for them.
Right.
And the following. That's often a sign of attachment, bonding. You're their pack leader, their source of food and safety. They rely on you. And, well, probably just like being near you. It's usually a compliment.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, what about technology? How is something like the Media Insights engine changing pet health diagnosis?
This is where tech meets pet care. The Media Insights engine uses computer vision again, teaching computers to see, to analyze videos or photos of pets. It can help spot subtle signs of potential health issues much earlier than might be noticed otherwise. Petco, for example, has used this kind of tech to speed up the initial assessment process. It helps veterinarians get to a diagnosis faster.
Like an AI assistant for the vet.
In a way, yes, helping to flag things that need a closer look.
And what about feeding? I saw something about a modular pet feeder with AI. What are the benefits there, beyond just automating meal times?
These smart feeders are getting quite sophisticated. Yes, they automate feeding schedules, which is handy, but the AI-powered ones do more. They often have cameras, sometimes microphones. They can monitor how much the pet eats and drinks, track their activity levels around the bowl, maybe even listen for unusual sounds.
And monitor health things.
Some claim to, yeah. Monitoring heart rate via sensors, analyzing feeding patterns and behavior over time. Then the AI can offer personalized insights or suggestions for diet adjustments or meal timing to improve the pet's well-being. It's aiming for really customized care.
Interesting. And speaking of diet, what about specific ingredients? How does fermenting pea starch help pets?
Fermentation is increasingly used in pet food for health benefits. Fermented pea starch, specifically, has shown promise for both dogs and cats. It seems to improve metabolic health and gut health. Studies suggest it can lead to better digestion, maybe lower levels of things like cholesterol and triglycerides in the blood. And for dogs, it's been linked to greater diversity in their gut microbiome, which is generally seen as a very good thing for overall health. It also seems to make the food tastier for them.
So better digestion and tastier food. Win-win.
Pretty much.
We've gone from smart feeders to fermented peas. Even things like Alexa skills for pets exist now, and this whole trend of pet humanization where we treat them more like family members. But with all this tech focused on pet health, what are the challenges?
Good question. While the tech is exciting, there are definitely challenges. First, accuracy. Ensuring these AI diagnoses or health insights are actually reliable and validated against proper veterinary standards is crucial. You don't want tech-leading owners down the wrong path. Second, privacy. These devices are collecting data, sometimes video and audio, from inside people's homes. How is that data stored? Who has access? Those are big ethical questions.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's about balancing the potential benefits with the need for accuracy, validation, and respecting privacy. Responsible innovation is key.
Wow. Okay. We have covered a lot today, from microplastics hiding in our food containers to shrinkflation nibbling away at our groceries.
Right, through to the massive potential of the circular economy.
The tricky landscape of AI personalization, both the good and the bad.
And finally, getting a better handle on why our pets do what they do with a little help from tech.
It really shows how all these different threads, consumer goods, technology, environmental concerns, even our relationship with animals are all kind of tangled together, aren't they? Constantly shifting and influencing our daily lives in ways we might not even notice.
Absolutely. And that's why staying informed is so important. These aren't static issues. New research, new products, new challenges pop up all the time. Being aware and thinking critically about the information we get is really key.
So here's a final thought to leave you with. In a world where everything from the amount of chips in your bag to potentially your cat's mood is being analyzed and adjusted, how do you navigate it all? How do you choose to stay aware and feel empowered as a consumer in the middle of all this change? Something to chew on.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive, exploring the insights for the Consumers 360 News Commentary. If you found this useful, please do like, share, and subscribe to Consumers 360 wherever you get your deep dives.